Welcome to Cycology Today. This is a show generally about bicycling and about bicycle safety. Thank you for watching. I'm your host, Ann Morrow. I hope that Cycology Today inspires you to ride a bike and helps you become more mindful about safety. We try to celebrate people in our community that choose careers that involve bicycling or that go into entrepreneurial endeavors that involve cycling somehow, which we'll kind of discuss tonight, and also those that just strive to encourage other cyclists and others to support cycling and to ride safely. Before we start our show, I want to make sure that I thank our crew in the control room who make this show possible, and I want to thank our producer, Northwest Bicycle Safety Council. Northwest Bicycle Safety Council is working on their 2018 events, going out to different events and making sure that people that need helmets have helmets on their heads, and most importantly too, that those helmets fit properly on their heads so that when there is a crash, and there might very well be a crash, that those helmets stay on the head and protect their brains. So we will be at Bike Beaverton in September, and I hope that you look for us there. We've divided our show into two segments, and in our first segment we're going to talk about bike craft, and that happens in December, but we want to talk about it sooner rather than later so that those that are interested in being vendors know about the event and can get involved. We have Ellie Blue and Joe Beal here to talk about what's going on, and although we talk about bicycling a lot, there's really a culture, and many of us just love all things bicycling, and bikecraft is part of that culture and just part of those many things that people create that have to do with bicycling. Our second guest is Officer Dave Sanders, and he's going to talk to us about bike theft. He's from the City of Portland's Bike Theft Task Force. So hopefully we'll learn how to protect our machines and what's going on as far as trying to prevent bike thefts. So let's get started. Our first guests, as I said, are Ellie Blue and Joe Beal. And thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
So I'm going to ask each of you, and Joe, I think I'll start with you. Why don't you each tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you came to be in Portland and that kind of thing.
Sure. So I grew up in Cleveland, and I was a delivery driver, and I got hit twice. I got in two really bad accidents, and both times they said based on the damage, it should have, been fatal. And then quickly I was like, well, driving is really not safe. So I promptly stopped driving, and I got a I got a bicycle, and I used my looked at the statistics. And then I met somebody that was moving to Portland, and I was like, oh, I'll move to Portland. That seems to be where the bicycling is, and that's kind of where I want to be, And so it's like I had kind of a rough go up until then. So I was like, maybe, and then 20 years later, I'm still here.
Well, awesome. and so still with us since you're not driving.
Right. Yeah, I know. And people always say oh, bicycling is so dangerous. And I'm like, well, statistically, it is the opposite, in fact.
Yes, yes.
But it's how it feels, I think, is often what they're talking about.
Yes, that's a whole other topic entirely.
Yeah. So that's what brought me here.
Well, good. Ellie?
I'm from New Haven, Connecticut, and I was inspired to start bicycling by the hours that I would sometimes spend waiting for the bus in New Haven. And sometimes it was often faster to walk 5 miles than it was to wait for the bus. And so one day on a whim, I got my old childhood bicycle out of my parents' garage, and it didn't fit me, and I didn't know how to ride it. I had the seat all the way down low, and I would ride on the sidewalk, and I would ride the wrong way, and I would jump off curbs and cut people off, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I had the best time. And I eventually moved to Portland in 2001 to go to college, and I got to know other bicyclists. I wasn't really the only one anymore, and riding with other people was how I learned to sort of both that bicycling doesn't have to be this terrifying, hair-raising adrenaline rush, but also that I could do it safely and responsibly. And also that it became a kind of a political thing for me and a cultural thing that really became part of my life.
Right. And we won't be delving into all of that tonight, because you're right. You're very deep, yes. So, aside from so tell me, well, let's see, you kind of did, you're both very bicycle oriented. So aside from cycling itself, what other cycling culture activities do you enjoy? What brings you joy about bicycling? Joe?
Sure. So, I mean, from pretty much early on, like I would ride my bike, and then I would think of like slogans and like T-shirt designs and things like that. And then that was often something, and then I began making them, and then I would have to go on longer and longer bike rides, and then that was when I'd stop and like write down my ideas, and you know, and then I rode like to the Appalachian Trail, you know, which is like a good couple 100 miles. And that was kind of where I was like, this is what I want to do with my life, is like come up with these kind of things. And, you know, and so to me, it was always, it was a similar thing where I was like culturally, politically, like I'm more motivated to like make it feel like a social movement than just something that like, than more than a sport, I guess. You know, and I guess and you know, and it was like I was an at-risk kid, and, you know, and it was kind of like the people that I grew up around, that was who bicycled, you know, and so I felt kinship with that more so than anything else. So I kind of wanted to create slogans and things like that, you know. So I have like a image where like the person evolves into a bicyclist, you know, and that was a really early like thing to sort of show, you know, how I saw the world, or like the, you know, the shirt that you and I are both wearing similarly, you know.
Where's mine?
And you know, and or like put the fun between your legs with the bicycle, you know. It's just like, it's not meant to be terribly serious, but it kind of makes you feel like you're a part of something, you know, and that was kind of what I was really going for, you know. And for you know, 22 years now, you know, and that's been really, really rewarding, because then you get to meet all the people that like really relate with it. That
You always have that common thread.
And there's great stories too.
Yes. Ellie?
For me, I mean, honestly, like, I think the thing that made me passionate about bicycling, like, it was always fun for me, but the thing that made me really care about it and made me keep doing it was the kind of communities that I found of people that did it. And that started with Critical Mass. But when I moved to Portland, I discovered Shift to Bikes, which is a local organization that's actually rebooting right now. So yeah, if anyone's interested in getting involved, they're like building a new board, and and they're the ones that run Pedalpalooza every June. And then I haven't really been involved socially as much anymore in these groups, but it's been so cool to see like all these new ones spring up. Like there's a newish group called Friends on Bikes, which is all women of color in the Pacific Northwest. And there's the Black Girls Do Bike organization, which is in cities all over the world, and there's one in Portland. There's a Trans Riders Union, I think it's called, TRU. And there's Bike Loud, which does like sort of in the streets activism. There's the Thursday Night Ride, which is about drinking and riding around on Thursday nights. I mean, there really is something for everybody. And if there's not something for you, you can start one. And I love that about bicycling, and I love that about Portland.
So, find the group that does work for you, or groups. You don't have to limit yourself to one, because there's lots of different things. So, let's see. So, just generally, the Portland, you've kind of touched on this, the Portland Metro bike culture, you know, the idea that there is all this going on. What do you see as those significant things? Like you just mentioned, all those rides is one of the significant things. What else do you see that's so significant about the culture of Portland bike community?
I mean, I think it's the democratic nature of it, that, you know, there isn't the barrier to entry. There isn't like, it's not a pay to play sort of field, you know. It's really the kind of thing that you can be a part of by deciding to. And I think for a lot of people, it's like they want sort of that identity, or, you know, sort of like they want to have like a social group that they feel like is their group, you know. And I think especially like when people enter middle age and such, that's really where you struggle, is to feel like you have people that you are your friends, that you relate with, that you have sort of shared values. And I feel like that is something that Portland has been a really emergent leader on with bicycling, that has influenced places around the world, you know.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I ride with the Wheelmen, which is a lot of older people, especially during the weekdays. It's a bunch of retired people riding their bikes. And you're right, just that whole social element of, which is important as you grow older. You know, it's really detrimental not to be social. So yeah, just that whole play for older, beyond middle age people.
As well. Yes.
We joke that getting together in person is the newest form of social media. It never goes out of style.
Yes,
And so
you're
that was
right.
kind of like the bike craft, They're like, okay, this is finally a way to socialize,
Yeah, and you do run into old friends, and or just that's a lot of fun. So back in the 90s, as Portland started to expand cycling, the goals were rooted, I pulled this from the internet, were rooted in environmental and public health, not the economy. But with people embracing cycling, it seems inevitable that creativity would lean towards cycling as well. So how do you see that evolution? So people start bicycling and then all this stuff starts cropping up. How do you see that happening?
I mean, I see it almost coming out of the economy. Like, when I first moved to Portland in the early 2000s, like, the economy was very bad. It was very hard to get a job. It was, difficult to get by. So people were sort of like creating their own economy. But like housing was really cheap at that time. So you could move to Portland with no job, pay $200 a month for a room in a very dirty house, and get by like making your art. And I feel like what kind of came out of that was like, this sort of huge cultural renaissance, and bicycling was a major muse for that. And it's shifted a lot, I think, since then as our economy has changed. And now you sort of have to have a job in order to exist in Portland. But I feel like we still have remnants of the culture there, and some of us are able to keep it going somehow.
I like to think, that we can. So kind of on that point then, Bikecraft came into being, I believe in 2005. So when is Bikecraft this year?
The Bikecraft this year is going to be December 15th and 16th, and it's at Tabor Space at Southeast 54th in Belmont.
Okay.
And it'll be noon to 6 both days. It's a 2-day event. And there's going to be like food trucks and bikey vendors and
So how did you both get involved in Bikecraft?
We actually met at Bikecraft.
we did.
Oh, really?
It's true. We're a Bikecraft success story.
Of which there are many others.
It wasn't the first one. We were both at the first one in 2005. Jonathan Moss of bikeportland.org started it.
Oh, he did? Okay.
And he ran it for many years.
Oh.
Yeah, so the first one was like in the coffee shop where Shift had their meetings, like south of I-84 in the 20s. It's
no
a
longer
gym
there,
now, or an office or something. But and then I think the second or the third one was at City Hall, and that's where Joe and I met.
Oh.
I bought a T-shirt from him.
Which is the T-shirt that we're wearing. Small world.
That she's not. Oh,
Right,
I didn't
well.
just
Not
want
that
to point
exact
that
one.
out.
I mean, 13 years go by, T-shirts wear
That
out.
one did wear out. I wore it a lot.
It happens. But and so it was a really interesting thing to watch, because similar, like you were talking about, it's that there was this feeling of success where, you have your sort of your people, and you feel like there's this movement happening, and you kind of know the other 20 people. And, especially with like the advent of Shift in 2002 and watching that spring into like a year-round thing, there was sort of a lot of springboard of ideas. And then Bikecraft was one of the more interesting ones because, people were, and similarly, like when I started Microcosm Publishing in 1996, in Cleveland, but Portland was a much more organic fit for it because of it had those values. And so it was really cool to have a thing that I felt like I was a part of that was both like community oriented, but it was also like an event to like show off the stuff that you make. There isn't a lot of things like that.
Right.
And especially because a lot of it, like once you sort of cross a line in terms of commerce, it really loses the magic and the fun and like the thing that makes it like a good gathering, And so and that was the thing that was obviously very intentional about it from the get-go, was that it was a hangout as much as it was like to look at stuff that people make.
That's a good point. And so this new location is a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Why don't you touch on that a little bit, the move?
Sure. Yeah. The last few years, it's hard to find a big space in Portland for a DIY event. And we are really running this on a shoestring.
Right.
So
You're not going to book the convention center or something.
Exactly. And last year we worked with Bike Farm that's hosted Bikecraft in the past, and they're a great fit. Like
Absolutely.
everything about the values of Bike Farm, which is a place you can go like fix your bike and learn to fix bikes almost for free, is a fit, but the space was just too small.
Yeah.
We had outgrown it, unfortunately. So we looked around, and Tabor Space is a community space in Southeast Portland. It's in a big old church. It's a place where there's just a ton of community events, and it's really affordable, and they're really excited to have stuff that brings people together. It's according to their mission. So
Good.
we're really excited to work with them. We're going to be sort of in the lower level where they're going to open up a wall between their two biggest spaces.
Oh, okay. So is this pretty bike, can you bike to it pretty easily?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
very
yeah.
bikeable. We'll have bike parking outside.
Okay.
And yeah, it's a little bit up a hill, but we all know how to.
Oh,
we all know how to bike up hills.
You can't bike a hill and live in Portland, boy.
It's like the reward at the top of the hill.
There you go.
Is like you get to drink some hot tea and enjoy time with your friends and support some local artists.
Yeah, and we move all of our stuff by bike, like all of our tables. We move by bike.
Okay,
All of our,
okay.
all
A
the
lot
stuff
of the
for
vendors
sale.
will
yeah.
load in by bicycle. It's funny, like we do a lot of events through Microcosm, and there's always like this just log jam of cars waiting to unload. But Bikecraft, it's like, a few people always show up with a car to unload, but more it's a parade of cargo bikes, like huge trailers.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's really very charming.
Yeah, you'll have to get some pictures and stuff to share that. I mean,
That's a good
seriously,
idea.
the whole how something gets put together is of interest to
Yeah.
people.
Totally.
Not just
Totally.
here it is.
Right.
Well, if anyone wants to be our event photographer, get in touch.
You'll probably have the most fun.
You can find us through bikecraftpdx.org.
So I have to say, Bike Farm had some great food venues in the neighborhood. What's the food situation at your new location?
We are going to be bringing in food trucks.
Okay. Oh, okay, cool.
And there are a couple of local businesses that are a few blocks away.
Yeah.
Good.
And that's, that's all very authentic Portland. It's like, because we do get some people that come from out of town to,
Yeah.
and it gives them a really good experience of like what it's like to live here.
Yes, yeah, that sounds great. It's August now and it's boiling hot outside. And to think about putting my raincoat on and my long-fingered gloves to get to Bikecraft is just kind of unimaginable right now. But it is very worth getting to. So let's talk about some of the vendors that have been there in the past and hopefully are signing up to join you again this year. I know I've been there, and I was sharing with you before the show. So from Bike Kitty, I got these cool glittery caps for my stems, and I put these on my Surly. So, when you're putting air in your tires, there's a little bit of glam going on. And this woman, Claudine Crafts, is that Claudine? So she makes things out of the wool. And lanyards aren't necessarily bike oriented, but she does some great crafts and these little cozy things for cups and stuff that then it could go into your bottle holder, your bottle cage on your bike. I'm going to be looking for her this year. And I usually try to get cards, so that then when unfortunately my friends that cycle fall and get hurt, then I have a card to send to them that's bike oriented to say sorry. Hope you're better soon. And the shirt. The shirt I got at Bikecraft.
Nice.
That's
So-
a good haul.
And I've gotten stickers put the fun between your legs. I need more, so I need to go. So just lots of fun things. What can you tell us about some of these people that come out and do this?
Well, we filled about a quarter of our vendor spaces just with returning vendors from last year,
Sure.
and we're looking for more. So far, we have someone who makes baby onesies with adorable bikes on them, or Kitty
bought
Violeta.
one of those. Yes.
You did.
And gave it to somebody that was having a baby.
I got a little shirt for my nephew. Oh my goodness, it's so cute. I don't think he cares. But
Yeah.
I don't think his parents care either. But I
He
thought
will
it
one
was
day.
adorable. Who else do we have coming back this year? Christina Waite, who's a Seattle artist. She does gorgeous pen and ink drawings of mountain bikes. And she also had a bunch of different things like cups with her art etched on them.
Oh.
She did really, really well last year and was really popular. So we're happy she's coming back.
And our co-organizer, Brian, his company is called Velogioli, and he makes bicycle stained glass and metalwork. And it's like a really neat artisanal quality, it's both bicycle themes and bicycle parts.
Yes.
And then he also makes things like etched pint glasses with,
Right.
bicycle slogans on them, as well as like jewelry, bracelets, kind of anything that you can make out of metal or stained glass. And then he also has, we've been cheering for a long time for someone to take home, I think it's the 15-foot tall bicycle obelisk. So if you have a nice like sprawling garden property and need some decoration, have we got the obelisk for you?
And my favorite thing about Brian's story is he got his start at Bikecraft, I think in 2009.
Oh, really?
Like he was unemployed, he was like, I don't know, and then he heard about Bikecraft and he was like kind of a tinkerer, so he like made a bunch of bracelets and earrings and showed up, and it would like launched his career, and now he does that full time. So it's like we're always kind of like looking for the next person. We're always looking for vendors who are like have established bike craft and bike accessory businesses, but also people who are just like, hey, I'll try it out. It's like $40 for a 3-foot table. It's easy to, it's just easy. It's easy entry level to, maybe launch something big in your life.
And that's neat for us too, because we get to sort of see people that are emerging, because it's, having done this for a long time and lived here for a long time, it's like, it's often hard to meet the newer generation. And then so this is kind of a great inroads for us as well, and to sort of see what, because people, often like the suggestion of the event prompts people to be creative, like Brian.
Yeah.
Well,
and I think it's a very casual event, and not kind of like a farmer's market or a Saturday market, but even a closer knit group, because everybody has that same theme. So you're not just, this is my station and that's your station. It's all kind of commingling, and here, you need a break, I'll cover your area for you, that kind of thing. And like you were saying, the whole networking thing about, I'm just getting started. How did you make a go of this? What about this? What about that? And you're meeting people that maybe can help you figure out some of the problems that you're facing.
Yeah.
Totally.
I'm just a person that goes there because it's fun. And I just...
We are too.
But I've observed that about the group, that it's just really comfortable and just everybody having a good time. And I like that about it. And two, it happens to be, right before the holidays. I know. So although there's stuff to buy for yourself, maybe you find some gifts for your other bike-loving friends.
It does make holiday shopping a little bit easier. So just to have it built in, I rely on it.
How many people go there for that and then take things home for themselves instead, or in addition?
There's a lot of that. And then the people that I need to buy gifts for who don't care about bikes also get bike-themed gifts typically because of Bikecraft.
Why not? Good
Exactly.
point. Why not?
Exactly.
So let's see. So you briefly mentioned that you're looking for vendors. So how can vendors get involved if they've got something to offer?
They can go to microcosm.pub/bikecraft, and there's a link to the vendor application. You can sign up for our email list to get notified about like opportunities to volunteer, or just to get a reminder before the event if you want to put it on your calendar. And we'll have our poster up there pretty soon for the year.
Good, good. And you've got plenty of time to make your craft.
Exactly.
Before December, and the weather will start getting bad and you won't be biking as much. So just kind of briefly, each of you tell me why people should go to Bikecraft.
Because they will find something that they didn't know that they needed, and they will have fun that is different from any kind of fun they could have had that day.
That is a good point. I think that you should go because we'll meet somebody and have a conversation in a low-key way that you didn't expect to have. And because it's like you won't regret going.
No, you won't. Well, thank you both for coming. I really appreciate you talking about Bikecraft, and I'm looking forward to it. And I know last year I did a Portland Wheelman ride to Bikecraft. Now I'll try to figure out a new route now that you moved. And
try and keep up with us.
And and we'll try to get there again and bring the ride out to you guys. So thanks again for coming, and I look forward to seeing you at Bikecraft.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
So let's go to a safety video now, and then we'll come back with our second guest, Officer David Sanders, and we'll get a little more serious and talk about bike theft and how to prevent it. So let's watch a safety video, and we'll be back.
Bicycling is one of America's favorite pastimes, yet like everything else, it has its risks. Every year, more children ages 5 to 13 go to hospital emergency rooms for injuries associated with bicycles than with any other sport. Many of these cases involve injuries to the head. Wearing a bicycle helmet can reduce the risk of head injury by an impressive 85%. So go ahead, enjoy the outdoors, but be sure to wear a properly fitted helmet. And remember to adjust it before every ride, or you won't be fully protected. If you will be buying new helmets, be sure from the label that they are CPSC certified. If you're using an older helmet, make sure it is Snell or ANSI approved. And there are even some dual certified helmets that can be used for bicycling and skateboarding. And whether there is a bicycle helmet law in your area or not, it's a smart idea for everyone to wear a helmet. And adults, it sets a good example for the kids. Once you have measured your head and chosen a helmet, adjust the sizing pads or the fitting ring for a comfortable fit without any rocking from side to side. The helmet should sit level on your head and low on the forehead, no more than 1 or 2 finger widths above the eyebrow. Adjust the lengths of the straps so the buckle is centered under the chin. Adjust the slider on both straps to form a V shape under and slightly in front of the ears. Lock the slider if possible. Buckle the chin strap and tighten it until snug. No more than 1 or 2 fingers should fit under the strap. At this point, double check to make sure that the helmet is secure and doesn't rock back and forth. If a big yawn doesn't pull down on your head, refer back to step 5 and tighten the chin strap. And if you just can't get the helmet to fit, try another one. Remember, a helmet can only protect your head if you wear it each time you ride. If you outgrow your helmet or are in a crash, replace it immediately or you won't be protected. With your new helmet properly fitted, you can ride with the confidence that you are getting the best protection possible.
So another good safety video encouraging people to wear a helmet and make sure that that helmet fits properly. So if something happens, if your head hits the ground, that helmet can do its job. Before we get back to our show and our second guest, I just want to mention a few rides that are coming up, like to encourage bicycling and let you know what's going on out there. There's still a lot of good riding ahead. It's kind of late summer right now as we film this show, and in the Northwest, good weather goes well into the fall. So don't hesitate to start biking and get out there and ride. There's a lot of good club rides coming up and meet rides and event rides that you pay for, but there are amenities available to you so that you get a little something for your money. They feed you, there's porta potties available, they carefully mark a route. The first one that is coming up August 18th, so this coming Saturday, is RACC, R-A-C-C, Ride Around Clark County. And that's put on by our friends at Vancouver Bicycle Club. They have some great routes. They have a family ride, a 34-mile ride, 67 and a 100-mile ride. And so that starts at Pearson Air Park in Vancouver near Fort Vancouver and goes kind of up into North Clark County, which if you've ridden up there, you know that there's plenty of hills. But it's August and you've been riding, so hopefully that's not an issue. Also coming up on August 19th is another Sunday Parkways, which is a good family event to go to, and that's going to be Northeast Portland. And then there's also another one, outer Northeast Portland on August 19th, and then Northeast Portland on September 23rd. So 2 more Sunday Parkways coming up, great family events, things to do with the kiddos or for newer riders. It's just a lot of fun. Harvest Century is also on September 23rd, and they bill that as the last event ride of the season. And that's one that I haven't done, but I've heard a lot of great things about it, so maybe I'll get out there and try that this year. Just that there's lots of fun things to do on your bicycle, so I encourage you to look around and see what's going to be fun for you. So, as promised, our second guest is Officer David Sanders from the City of Portland's Bike Theft Task Force. Welcome back to Cycology Today.
Thanks for having me back, Ann.
So you were a guest on our show back in January of 2016, and we're probably going to touch on some of the same information, but I think there's always things to learn for all of us. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, I grew up in the Portland area. I started working for the Portland Police Bureau in 2007, and I had kind of an interest in bicycling. I went off to college, kind of got into mountain biking down in Corvallis, came back and kind of did it recreationally, but a spot opened up on the bike unit downtown in 2011, so I put in for that, got the spot, and I've been doing that ever since. So currently I work on a bicycle. I get paid to ride a bike. Can't get much better than that.
Don't brag.
So I love it. It's been awesome. Every year I'm like, oh, I'll give it another year or two. So,
well, good. We're sure
yeah.
glad you're there, and it's nice that you're a real enthusiast.
Well, thanks.
You know, not just a square peg plugged into a round hole. You wanted to be there, so
Yep,
that's great.
absolutely. And I think I'm getting more and more into cycling as kind of the years progress too. So
Well, I think that's
lot
the
of
way it
fun.
works.
Mhm.
And you can grow older with bicycling.
Yep.
That's the good thing. Maybe not mountain biking, but so tell us about the Portland Bike Theft Task Force. How does that work? What do you do?
yeah, so that's kind of maybe another hat that I wear. And we started in 2015, right before I came on your show. And it was a way to kind of harness the power of the community to address bike theft. And I kind of keyed in on bike theft in like 2014 that, hey, this is a real problem and more emphasis and focus needs to be put on this problem. So my partner Dave Bryant and I started the Bike Theft Task Force in 2015 to try to really focus efforts on decreasing bike theft in Portland. And what we found is we really need the community to help us in this endeavor. So we talked to a lot of key community partners, established the Bike Theft Task Force, and so it's something that we do on the side as time allows. It hasn't been staffed full-time yet. Cross my fingers.
Yeah.
But so we do it as time allows throughout the week. And all of our bike unit, all 6 of us, really kind of put time into addressing bike theft throughout the city.
Well, thank you for doing that, and thank you for sharing your knowledge and what you've learned along the way with all of us, because we're pretty naive about all of it, I think. Most of us are. So who these days is typically stealing the bikes?
So I work downtown, so what I see is kind of the street level thieves. They're kind of general criminals, I guess you could say. They're not really targeting bikes only, but they're the same ones breaking into garages, houses, cars, involved in assaults and robberies and that sort of thing. So it's not just like a bike thief, it's more of a general criminal who's just looking for a way to take something to make some money.
An opportunist.
Yeah, yeah.
And a bike is pretty vulnerable.
It is. Yeah, and the bike thieves, they've learned that they can get away with it more often than not. So that's why they keep stealing the bikes. And they're valuable.
Yeah, yeah, many of them are quite. And I think, sometimes, yes, they are financially, they can be quite valuable, but I think that many people have honed their little bicycle into the perfect set of wheels for them, and it's often a real loss to that person. Not the financial loss, but just their bike that they customized and put the right seat on and got that stem to fit just right, and now it's gone.
Yep, gotten those fenders that you love to ride and that sort of thing.
So
absolutely.
it really hurts. So what is some of the challenge with making an arrest of some of these people and then having the evidence for the prosecution?
Well, one of the big challenges is catching the person who stole the bike. And showing that they stole the bike. So a lot of times we'll catch folks with the stolen bike, but it's hard to prove that they actually were the ones that stole it. Often they try to pass it off pretty quickly. It switches hands real fast. So that's one challenge, is just to come up with that evidence that you would present in court to show why this person stole the bike. More often we get cases that have to do with possession of stolen property. So charging people for possessing that stolen bike, knowing that it, or should have known that it's stolen. So that's the route we usually go. But
and so we're going to talk about some preventative techniques. How can we prevent our bike from being stolen? I know that you recommend U-locks rather than cable locks. And some of my friends with the Wheelman have a new kind of a cinch kind of a lock that's lightweight, and it's multi-layer steel and Kevlar. So that, boy, people are flinging those things out at the Wheelman rides. Look what I got. And it's resistant to cutting or tearing. And also there's a German-made kind of thing that folds up that's 5 millimeters thick, specially hardened steel plates. So those are a couple of new devices that maybe thwart a criminal a little bit. Have you seen those around, or do you know what I'm talking
no, I do know the bands, and we actually met with that company before they kind of launched to talk about maybe some of the ways that the thieves might try to defeat them and so forth. We haven't done any product testing, so I can't talk in terms of how secure they are.
Yeah, and neither of us offered to buy one that you tested, did we?
Yeah, and there are more and more locks that are hitting the market, different kinds, real innovative stuff. So I think we're getting better in terms of what we're offering to customers and to cyclists, but our message is we just try to keep it simple. So we say use a U-lock and then lock it properly to the bike. So
what is the proper way to use a U-lock?
Yeah, so our message that I've been trying to simplify is just using the rear triangle of the frame. So affixing the U-lock to somewhere in that rear triangle. If you capture that, it'll prevent other methods of theft that I don't have to go into detail about, but we see a lot of people locking up like the top tube with the U-lock, and sometimes that can be defeated more easily. So we just preach the rear triangle with the U-lock.
Okay. And let's kind of, you've got some demonstration for us.
So I talk about a lot of different kinds of locks. Here's a big chain lock. It weighs a lot more than a U-lock, so a lot of people don't want to lug that around on their
That is
loop.
an issue, is the totability.
Right, exactly, yeah. Here's a titanium lock.
Oh.
That's we haven't seen any of those really defeated. The U-lock is, or D-lock is what some people call it.
Oh,
but
sure.
this is kind of what we recommend. It's steel. You need a pretty big set of bolt cutters to cut it. And a lot of these nowadays aren't able to be defeated. They use good keys. They're just a good all-around lock. However, the more you spend on it, the more secure it's going to be. So we always recommend making it hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
And spending a bit more.
Well, when you have a nice bike, that's kind of what you do.
Absolutely.
So any preference, key, combination lock, any of that kind of stuff? Is one of the other more defeatable than another?
Nope, I don't think so. I think just buy a good U-lock. So a lot of the theft reports that I see have to do with cable locks. and a lot of people are still using them.
Yes.
And back in the day, they served their purpose, but they're just way too easy to cut nowadays.
Even when that's a good sized cable.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you look at it after it's been cut, half of it's going to be plastic. So it may look real thick, but actually only half of it's the actual metal cable inside. So it's deceptive in a lot of ways. And a lot of these thieves that we catch, like with our bait bike program and stuff, they're just carrying these around, just simple wire
Something
cutters.
that small? See, I envisioned a gigantic thing that would be noticeable.
Right, yeah. And the cable locks are just made out of braided steel. So they can, some of them take a little time to get through, but it's pretty easy to snip through, especially if you're using something like this to lock up your bike.
So when I go on club rides, we stop for coffee.
Right.
And somebody will bring out something smaller than that, and
Right.
we'll just kind of string our bikes together. And you're saying that's like maybe not a good idea.
No, and
That's not even going to slow them down.
yeah, and a lot of people are like, well, I'm just stopping for coffee. I
Exactly.
can see the bike. Maybe I'll just lean it up against the post or the tree. I'm right there. But we take a lot of theft reports where they watch their bike right away and then it's too late. And the thieves can cut this in a matter of 2 seconds. And a lot of times you won't even know that they're doing that. As a passerby, they'll have the pair of bolt cutters, or they'll have the tool in their backpack, and they'll just go up to the bike like they might be unlocking the bike, but really they're getting the tools to
Okay.
cut it. So they're pretty sneaky in what they're doing.
Yeah, I suppose, and use their bodies to kind of cover up what they're doing.
Yeah. So it happens in an instant before anybody can even react. So I can show you an examples of cutting some of these locks.
Yeah,
I
let's
didn't
see.
I didn't necessarily stage easy to cut locks, so maybe we'll see how this goes.
Okay.
But this is just a simple tool.
Pick it up at any big box store. Whoa.
Yep. So it snips right through.
Falls to the ground and away you go.
Yep.
Wow.
Easy peasy. So here's a little bit thicker one. I don't know how strong this is going to be. We can try this. So that's a pretty hefty
that's
cable
pretty
lock.
beefy.
You can't find a lot thicker than that. So that took maybe another try. So
See, I have something like this, like I said, and I like to think it would take them quite a few minutes to saw through it.
Yeah, and
So-
if you look in there, a lot of it's
Yeah,
plastic.
yeah.
So they're deceptive, and so we're just trying to encourage folks, don't ever use cable locks as primary security. So what we do cable lock exchange at the Sunday Parkways events often. So this one comes with the cable lock, but that's more to lock up accessories. Maybe if you have a nice seat, your front wheel, that sort of thing. So it works in conjunction with the U-lock. So that's the only way that we recommend in which you would use a cable lock.
So again, not unlike Northwest Bicycle Safety Council going out and making sure people have helmets, you're trying to make sure that people have locks.
Absolutely, yeah. We got to keep those bikes safe if they're going to be ridden. So.
Yeah, and especially so children getting ready to go to school and safe routes to school, part of it should be a lock.
Absolutely, yeah. And you might spend a little bit more on the lock, but you're saving even if it's just the inconvenience of having to replace that bike. It's kind of a big deal. Filing a police report, a lot goes into that. Trying to find a new bike.
Yes.
Shopping for one and sizing it and buying accessories and that sort of thing. So it'll save. It's well worth the money.
Yes, I know. I had a rider out on a club ride a week or so ago that had started to be a bike rider several months ago, and his bike got stolen. And like most of us, you don't just, I'll go buy a new one. He had to save up for another bike.
Yep.
And so now he's becoming a bike rider again.
Oh,
So just like you said, you don't just go out and buy another bike, the one that you love, the expense and all of that stuff.
Yep.
So we hear, I keep hearing on the news that cyclists lock their bikes in a shed at their home or in their garage or in an apartment complex where maybe they say they have a secure bike facility of some sort, but bikes are getting stolen. What's going on there, and what's the solution?
Yeah, in Portland, we're getting hit hard in the bike storage areas. And a lot of times, somebody will get their purse stolen or something, and then they'll have a fob from the person's key ring. They'll have their address, so 2 a.m. that night, they get into the bike room, and then they have kind of the next couple hours to do whatever they want in there without being detected. So we see a lot of those broken into, and multiple bikes are wheeled out of there. So it's a huge problem, and yeah, people think that, well, the door's locked, only residents have the key, it'll be safe, so they don't bother locking it as well.
I see. And even your personal shed on your property, maybe you just have a little, again, some kind of little lock on there. As soon as they get the door open, they can take whatever they want.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of people leave their garage doors open by accident, maybe even for an hour. And there's just so many thieves out there looking for bikes to steal. They'll see that, and they'll take that as an opportunity to wheel your bike out. So we always recommend locking your bike up indoors as you would outdoors, if you can. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sad it's come to that.
It really is. But we're getting the message. So what should I do if my bike is stolen? You mentioned filing a police report. What's the protocol?
Yeah, we tell people to file a police report, but also register it as stolen on Project 529 and Bike Index. That's your best chance at getting it back.
So you kind of walked me through that process, and we had Brian Hance on the show just last month.
Great.
And to talk about that end of it. So you kind of walked me through the Project 529, I think you were showing me, their app. And it's really simple, and it doesn't take much effort, kind of plan ahead, have your serial number ready and that sort of thing. And
yeah, it's free and easy. It's amazing to me that more people don't do it, but it's the best way to protect your bike before it's stolen. So it's basically what those do is they help you record what you have with a picture, recording the serial number. Yeah, so if it's ever stolen, you can give that information to us, the police, but also the community.
And the community being just other bike shops, or somebody that might end up like a pawn shop, or I think sometimes they report that they've got the bike because they looked up on one of these databases, this bike is stolen.
Yep, a lot of bike shops are checking these registries, but also secondhand sales. A lot of folks will check Bike Index and Project 529 if they're going to buy a used bike to make sure it's not listed on there as stolen. So that's one way a lot of these are intercepted.
Yeah, good. So, but you have a warehouse full of bikes that you've recovered that aren't back with their owners. So that's part of the solution. How do you get how do people get connected back with their bikes if they've lost them?
So I seize multiple bikes every week. I'm out there looking for bikes, to take back. And what I do is I check our police records as well as the bike registries.
Okay.
So if you file the police report with your serial number and we touch it, you will get it back.
Okay.
So that's because a lot of folks haven't done that. That's why we have so many bikes in our property room just waiting, without owners.
So it can have a happy ending, but you need to do a little legwork, not really a lot, but just make sure that maybe you register it, definitely file a police report if you hadn't, and get it on that registry after the fact even, is not too late.
Yeah, and also check the online marketplaces. A lot of bikes are sold on those online marketplaces. So.
Now I know that there's a lot of fun stories about people going after their own bike. They see their bike on Craigslist and they pretend to be a new buyer. And do you recommend that kind of activity, or what do you suggest?
No, I guess it doesn't hurt to drive around town. Like a gal called in today that she thought she saw her bike at a certain location near downtown and called us to get us involved, and that's exactly what we would prefer people to do, because we can be the buffer and go up to the bike, look at the bike, check and see if it's, suspicious or stolen or theirs. So we always recommend getting us involved
Yeah.
whenever you find your bike sold online or if you see it around town, that sort of thing.
Because you mentioned at the outset, these people are not necessarily nice people.
No,
and so
absolutely
to
not. Yeah.
go against them and say, this is my bike, and try to take it back might not have a happy outcome.
Yeah, and personal safety
Yeah.
always trumps property.
Yes.
So.
Yes. And you know the laws and the,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just how it should work.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about, how is this going to end? What is the path to curbing this kind of societal dilemma that we're having right now with all these bike thefts? How do you see this ending?
That's a good question. I love thinking about this and trying to come up with a solution. And I guess it's clearer and clearer as I've been doing this longer and longer. And it's kind of a simple solution, I think. But it's going to take a lot of time and effort, and really it boils down to bike registration.
Oh.
For me. I mean,
Okay.
it's as simple as that.
Uh-huh.
If everyone would record what they have, kind of like cars, you know,
Yeah.
license plates are all
Yeah.
registered,
Uh-huh.
then the bikes would still get stolen,
Sure.
but you would get your bike back, you know, and I really think it would reduce bike theft dramatically
Yeah.
if we could get enough bikes registered. For me, in Portland, the number that I've been kind of going for is 100,000 bikes. If I could get 100,000 bikes registered in Portland, I think we would really see the synergy, the multiplying factor kind of in that. So
That's interesting. So do you see, like, maybe as I buy a bike at the bike shops, maybe they could be doing all this with
yep,
us?
absolutely, yeah.
They could maybe do it for us, with us at the bike shop.
Yep, and more bike shops are getting on board with
Oh, they
this.
are. Okay.
So it's becoming more popular, and it's a value added to the customer who buys the
Yeah.
bikes. So, so that's kind of one thing I really want to focus in on. Start even over this next year is, making sure we're getting those point of sales registrations and really pushing registration kind of in a big way in the community. So
What a cool idea. I like that.
yeah.
So, so the thieves would realize that they're really probably not going to be successful. I mean, some
Right.
of them are oblivious. That's not their focus at all. But yeah, I mean, just like anything, when it becomes less lucrative,
Yeah, it'll be hard to flip a bike. You know, when
Yeah.
they try to sell it, the person's going to pull up a bike registry and say, hey, it's listed as stolen, you know, so it'll hold them accountable.
Yeah.
Harder to move up the chain, so to speak.
So so are you going to bike shops? How are you trying to implement this, or have you quite gotten into that situation yet?
I haven't quite dove into it head first yet, so it's very time intensive, unfortunately.
Yeah, it would be.
But yeah, I love doing bike registration events, like at the
and
Sunday parkways.
STP,
cycling
I saw you at
events. Yep.
STP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just trying to get as many cyclists, their bikes protected as we can, I think is the goal. But
So share a couple of your recovery stories. We've got a few minutes left. Yeah, I know that you've had success, so tell us a few of those stories. Oh, no, we've got 2 minutes to wrap. Tell us one of your recovery
well,
stories.
the overall theme that I've seen is a lot of people are just baffled when they get their bike back. They're like, I never thought I'd hear this. You know, I never thought I'd get this call. So it really excites me to make that more of the norm rather than the exception. So we're really trying to send out tweets, you know, of bike recoveries that we do,
Yes.
and really try to get the word out that we as kind of a police bureau are doing a lot more. So we're hoping that motivates the community to kind of come on board and really help us in our efforts.
So, yeah, because I'm at Twitter I follow Brian Hance.
Yeah.
And so, he lists when he's getting bikes back. And,
Yep.
and you're right, that's really a positive thing to see. And it really is encouraging to register my own bike, which I haven't done.
There's still time.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming, and it's I just really appreciate that you're really trying to think about this and figure out a solution. So I really appreciate your coming and sharing with us and showing us how easy our locks are to get into, so that we go with the U-lock. So thanks for
Good.
coming again.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on Cycology today. And I hope that you've gotten some information about how to protect your own bike. And we certainly appreciated Joe Beal and Ellie Blue coming to talk to us about bike craft as well. So we kind of had a little bit of fun and a little bit of seriousness. And thank you for watching. And Bruce Buffington, who's here today, is, as some of our staff in the back room, leads some great rides in Washington County through Portland Wheelman, pwtc.com, and I lead some easy rides as well. So come and test us out and see what it's like to be riding a bike. And I think, like Ellie talked about, just the social aspect, hanging out with other people who are kind of like-minded about bicycling, and also learning new skills, learning how to ride a bike, not on the sidewalk, and not going the wrong way, not jumping curbs, but how to ride safely and what the laws are and how to implement those while you're on the road. It really helps. Also, as I mentioned about the middle of the show, there's just lots of great riding out there. And I think Ellie mentioned a lot of different groups. So certainly there's some kind of group that meets your needs, that's going to be your people that you want to ride bikes with. So just check it out. That's the beauty of Portland, is there's lots of different groups to ride with. I want to mention too that when you're riding your bike, you do want to use hand signals. And so do signal your stops and your turns. When I'm riding with a group, I encourage everyone to be using the signal. Our group knows we're all together, but the people in the cars don't know that we're all together. So do use hand signals so that everybody knows what your intentions are. And even the other cyclists when you're riding alone, so that they don't crash into you. Sometimes I find that if you're having to stop quickly and you're grabbing your brakes, you can use your voice and yell stopping so that people behind you know that you're coming to kind of an abrupt stop and they don't run into the back of you. So those are the kinds of things that you learn when you're riding in a group. I want to mention, give a shout out again to Vancouver Bicycle Club, who's putting on the Rack Ride, an annual event. So get out and ride, check things out. Thanks again for joining us, and this was Cycology Today.